Welcome back. With the expected tariffs this afternoon, the Trump administration is banking on hundreds of billions of dollars in new revenue. Our senior economics reporter, Steve Liesman, reports, well, Steve, how do they get to hundreds of billions, and could it end up being less than expected?
Maybe not the right way, according to some economists. Peter Navarro, the president's trade counselor, says tariffs could bring in $600 billion a year. The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation says it could be half of that. Here's what economists say cuts into tariffs. Tariffs decline because you're taxing it, so there's actually a decline in imports. You have lower returns to capital and to labor, and then you also have potentially lower GDP. Well, that's what a lot of people have marked in. Erica York from the Tax Foundation says that $600 billion estimate from the administration, which assumes a 20% tax on all imports, could be more like $300 billion when all is said and done. That's even before the effects of retaliation, and it's all because of basic economics. York said the White House tariff revenue numbers are not realistic. They missed that imports would fall and that tariff payments would shrink the income and payroll taxes bases, both of which significantly reduce the expected revenue tariffs will yield. Already, several forecasters have downgraded GDP directly because of those tariffs, and Goldman says it could be a 0.4% hit to GDP and wrote this week, quote, the fiscal package is unlikely to offset the GDP hit from tariffs. That's sort of the way to feel like the market is trading. The White House has said the tariffs are tax cuts, but because they are believed to be mostly paid by U.S. businesses and consumers, economists treat them and score them like tax hikes. And this could be one of the largest tax hikes since at least 1942.
Which goes into the question of what is the revenue, whatever it is, going to be used for. So if it's used to bring down our income taxes or something like that, then you can see how people are making the link from one to the other. But, of course, anything that increases the price level acts as a tax. So I guess one of these questions, what is the revenue going to be used for? Because I think right now there's a lot of things on that wish list.
You're asking me that question?
I
have no idea.
I want to know.
But it is interesting to think of it as a tax cut, the way the administration has put it, which would essentially say that some people who pay no income tax now would now be paying a tariff or an import or an excise tax.
True.
And we haven't talked a lot about the regressive nature of this tax, which is worth pointing out. It's much harder on poor people from a couple different ways. First of all, poor people are more likely to buy the cheaper imported product. Wealthier people can afford an American-made product, but also because it's a larger percentage of their income that they'll end up paying, and there's no rebate, essentially.
Well, and the reason why, I mean, I care for multiple reasons, but also because this is all going to come back to the deficit in some way, shape, or form. Especially, look, I don't know if Musk is going to end up leaving his post in the next few months or not, but it's clear that the political headwinds the GOP faces could keep them from doing as much spending cuts as they want on some of the major entitlement programs.
This could help.
Doge, I mean, it's on the margin. It's not one of the big movers. Tariff revenue, well, if it's being used to bring down taxes elsewhere, is not going to help solve a deficit. So I'm curious where those funds are going to be directed.
There's a big question, by the way. It's a procedural question as to whether or not tariff revenue can be used in reconciliation.
And I believe it cannot.
I've heard not,
yeah.
Except if they want to change the rules, in which case they might be able to, because it's Congress, and Congress can actually make up its own rules. It's one of the features of our Constitution.
If it's bipartisan and they don't have to do reconciliation, if they end up pushing for maybe some tax hikes on the higher end, then they could maybe count some of that tariff revenue.
But let me go back to emphasize the point of the story, which is that it's a really hard thing to count on, right? Which is that you tax it, you reduce the essentially the imports upon which it's based. So how do you do it? Now, this is even before what Erica says is dynamic scoring. And by the way,
taking if it hits growth into
account. Republicans have insisted that tax cuts have to be dynamically scored. Well, guess what? Be careful what you wish for, because now tariffs should be also dynamically scored.
Interesting point. Steve, thank you.